Hello, and welcome to the SAF Audiovisual Cast, where we, SAF, connect and share information from top university officials, faculty, and administration directly with SAF students and parents. Thanks for joining us. First, I'm your host, William, with SAF here in Chicago. We've got a great guest here today, the International Programs Officer for the University of Manchester. Greetings, Stephanie Nixon. Hello.
Hi, William.
So thanks for being here today, Stephanie. First, you're our first UK or European school on the podcast. So congrats and thank you.
Excellent.
Now, I wanted to quickly introduce you and then hand it over as well. You've spent a good amount of time, more than 10 years with the University of Manchester within international programs, but you've actually had a long career in education, covering both further education and also, as I understand, there's some connections to Las Vegas.
There are, yes. So I started out working in education many years ago, 1994, which is giving away how old I am. But I started working in the further education sector in the UK, which is, it's the sector that caters for students between the ages of 16 and 18, because students leave high school in the UK when they are 16, but they can't start at university till they're 18. So in those in-between 2 years, they go to a further education college. And I spent many years working with UK students in a further education setting. I joined the University of Manchester in its higher education capacity in 2006. And the way I came to that role in international education from working just with UK students was via connections with colleagues who worked in American community colleges. I happened very randomly at some point in 2002, 2003, I think, to make contact with a marketing manager who worked at a community college in California, and asked him whether he'd be willing to correspond with me about sharing good practice and the way that we worked with students in the UK compared to how they did in the US. And he introduced me to an American network called the National Council for Marketing and Public Relations that was allied to the American Association of Community Colleges. And they had an upcoming conference in Las Vegas. And I thought, I wonder if I can get my college to support me to go and attend that conference. And amazingly, they did. And so that was how I became introduced to dozens of US colleagues who were working in a very similar role to me, but in a completely different context. And so that really was how I got involved in international education and then moved to the University of Manchester about 2 or 3 years after that.
So truly an international entrance to international education.
Absolutely.
So now you're at the University of Manchester, which is in the city of Manchester. From an outsider's perspective, I am aware of the Industrial Revolution and football or soccer, depending on where you are or who calls it what. Can you tell us a little bit more about the city?
Yes, so by UK standards, it's a big city. It's probably the second or third biggest city in the UK after London and possibly Birmingham. But by international standards, I mean, obviously any students who come from cities like Seoul or Beijing, it will feel tiny. It's a very compact city centre, so it's the defined downtown part of Manchester, if you like, is very compact, very easy to walk all around within about half a day. And our campus is located probably about half a mile south of what you might consider to be downtown city centre Manchester. So it's very much an urban campus. We're not set out in a green field, for example. We very much are part of the city. And the city, as you said, it's famous really for three things. History, obviously it's where the Industrial Revolution started. The university itself is very historic because it's where Ernest Rutherford split the atom. It's where the first computer was invented. So lots of historical developments at the institution itself. It's very famous as a city for music as well. Lots of very well-known bands came out
of course. 24-hour party people as well, right?
Absolutely, yeah. If you do any kind of Google search on Manchester music, you'll just get dozens and dozens of bands that come up that were all connected to the city in really the late 1990s and into the early 2000s. And it's also, as you say, a very famous city for sport. So the sport that most people will connect Manchester with is football, obviously with Manchester United and Manchester City, but it's very famous for other sporting activities as well. So we have an Olympic-sized swimming pool in Manchester that hosted the Commonwealth Games a few years ago. Cricket is huge in the city. We're home to the National Velodrome for cycling, so any cyclists, there's an amazing facility that you can take advantage of. Rugby, a huge range of sports. Whether you want to just be a spectator or whether you want to participate, there's loads of opportunity in the city.
Well, wonderful. Now, let's take a look a little bit closer at the university itself. You've mentioned how much history it has. Now, I believe the campus is somewhat unique as well. Is that right?
Yeah, we are actually the biggest single-site university in the UK. We're located, as I say, about half a mile south of the city centre. And it's a really interesting juxtaposition of different architectural styles, because obviously the foundations of the university go back to the early 19th century, and there are some amazing buildings that were around at that point that now sit alongside some brand new high-tech, really modern buildings that have that house some of the most up-to-date learning facilities for students that there are in the UK.
Regarding the university, can you tell us a little bit more about popular areas of studies or majors?
Yeah, so it might actually be easiest if I start off by telling you subject areas that we don't have any provision in, because it is a comprehensive university with a huge long list of majors. We don't offer provision in journalism and communication studies, media studies, that kind of thing. We don't have any provision in fine art. We don't open courses in electrical engineering or the professional services like dentistry, pharmacy and medicine to study abroad students. Architecture also isn't open, but pretty much everything else is. So we have a faculty of engineering and physical sciences that has programs available in things like chemical engineering, physics, maths, chemistry, aerospace engineering, mechanical engineering, so a huge range of engineering and physical science disciplines. And then we have a biological sciences faculty as well, so biology, life sciences are available to study abroad students. And then we have a huge faculty of humanities where arts, liberal arts, all those kind of courses are available. Social sciences, business, music, drama, geography, the whole range really of humanities, with the exception of those subjects that I mentioned.
Comprehensive answer for a comprehensive university. Wonderful. Now, coursework is demanding at many top schools. I believe also the University of Manchester offers a lot of services to students visiting and full-time. Could you share a little bit more about some of those services that are available for students?
Yeah, so in the UK, lots of students from overseas find that they have to adjust to a very different education system than they might be used to in their home country. So in the UK, we follow a method of learning that's called inquiry-based learning or problem-solving learning. And it's much less about all students that are on a course, all reading the same chapter in the same book for the same upcoming lecture. And it's much more about saying, here's the topic that we're going to be discussing in lectures or small group seminars. You might read one journal article in preparation. I might read a chapter in a book in preparation. Another student will read a completely different set of articles in preparation for that lecture. So when we all come together, we're all bringing different viewpoints. And that can sometimes be quite challenging for students who've been used to being told very specifically what chapter to read in preparation for something. So that can be quite an adjustment. So there's lots of academic support services that are in place to help students make that adjustment to a different kind of learning. So we have things like, we have an online facility that's called My Learning Essentials, and it's really popular with students. It's a whole series of online resources, online webinars. There are also some in-person workshops that are run that help students with exactly those kind of adjustments. There are also the more traditional student support services, such as disability advisory support services, and that's not only for students that might have a physical disability, so they can support students who might have additional support needs for things like dyslexia, dyspraxia, and so on. Students who might need additional times in exams, for example, or extensions to deadlines. So that kind of support is available through the Disability Advisory Support Service. We also have a counselling service that's available to all students. So once a student is studying on our study abroad programme, they're not somehow different from any other student because they're only with us for a semester or a year. They have exactly the same access to all the support services that a regular full degree student has. And then there's the support that's available through the International Programmes Office as well. So we act as a student's home school, so to speak, whilst they're on programme. Because study abroad students, by the very nature of their programme, they tend to take course units from across lots of different subject areas. So unlike a degree student who is owned by a single academic school, a study abroad student doesn't have a single academic school that looks after them. So the International Programmes Office it provides that function for them.
Okay. Now, one other area, feature of the chances to study at the University of Manchester stood out from our perspective was that the housing. That there are some interesting housing options for visiting students. Could you tell us a bit more on the topic?
Yeah, so we guarantee University of Manchester housing for any student who's studying with us for a full academic year. We don't use the word guarantee for students who are coming just for a single semester, but we've never had a case where a single semester student who wants university housing hasn't got it, and we're not anticipating that there's going to be any change to that in the future. We actually prefer students to go into university housing. So every year we occasionally have some students who opt to find a private house from, with a private landlord somewhere in Manchester. And we don't stop students from doing that, but we very strongly encourage them to apply for university housing. And the reason for that is we have what's called a residential life system in place in all our halls of residence. So we have staff who live in the residences with students. So any students who are homesick or have any additional welfare support needs, there are university staff living in the residences with them. Students can also select for, whether they want to go into catered or self-catered residences. So basically that's whether you want a residence where your meals are provided for you, or whether you want to cook for yourself and your flatmates. One thing again that might be quite different from other countries and the housing arrangements that are in place there is that we don't have any room shares at Manchester. So each student will have their own individual bedroom. You won't have a roommate that sleeps in the same room as you. You have your own bedroom, but usually somewhere between 7 and 9 bedrooms are grouped together in what we call a flat, like an apartment. So students will share a living room, a kitchen, sometimes bathroom facilities, although students can opt for ensuite bathroom facilities, which is where they have a bathroom attached to their own bedroom if they wish. So the residences are communities where there's a whole lot going on that can ease students in the transition into living in England. We also have various different options for where our residences are located. So we have some residences that are literally right on campus. You fall out of bed and it's a 5-minute walk to your classroom. The furthest away from campus I'm going to say it would be possible for students to live is about 1.5 miles from campus, and it's straight down one main road. It would take students probably about 25 minutes to walk from that furthest away residence back up to campus. So even if you're living as far away as it's possible to live, it's still not actually very far. But we do give students the choice of where they want to live. And in the housing application, students can list up to 3 of our residences in order of preference to be considered for.
Okay. Stephanie, we'd love to hear a little bit about your favorite place on campus. Can you tell us?
Yeah, I actually have 2, if I'm allowed to give you 2. One is indoors and one is outside. So my favourite indoor location is, it's called the Rutherford Room, and it's what used to be Ernest Rutherford's lab. And it's actually on the ground floor of the building that my office is in. And it's the room that Ernest Rutherford split the atom in, basically. And in his original bench is still in that room. All the original tiling is still on the walls. And it's so fascinating because there are photos up in the room of Ernest Rutherford when he was in that room. You can see all the same benches, the same tiles. It's really fascinating. And it's just such a historic room, and that's my favourite indoor space. And my favourite outdoor space is an area called the Quad, and it's where you've got the beautiful old Gothic building that's now got loads of ivy climbing up it. It's just a really traditional space, and in the spring, when you have all the cherry blossoms coming out on the trees that are in the Quad, it's just this really beautiful, peaceful place to go to, right in the middle of campus, but just exquisitely beautiful, especially in the spring.
I'm ready to enroll. I think I need to take a visit.
I'll sign you up.
Now, speaking on some other areas, the moment the world is facing, every country, individuals and organizations are challenged with unprecedented abnormalities with COVID-19. And a lot of universities have responded in quite interesting ways, but things have certainly changed. Can you tell us a little bit about the effects within the University of Manchester or Manchester City, and how the university has responded?
Yeah, so as you can tell, at the moment the university campus is closed, and all staff and students are working remotely. We closed our campus in the middle of March. I think it was about the 17th, 18th of March. And at that point, the university incredibly quickly, unbelievably quickly, moved everything online. So within the space of a matter of a couple of weeks, really, all teaching materials were moved online so that all students that were registered on programme with us could continue with their programme of study and complete it as intended. So all students who've just finished with us this semester they'll complete their course, they'll get a percentage mark as they expected to, and they'll get their transcript upon completion of their programme as they expected and need. So we found ourselves in the situation when the campus closed that just because we moved to working from home, that didn't necessarily mean that all students just immediately vacated the campus. We had quite a number of students who, for all sorts of reasons, such as their home country's borders had closed, there were no flights leaving back to their home country, or the UK's restriction on non-essential travel meant that they found that they were unable to leave Manchester immediately. So we had a number of students who remained in university halls of residence, and all the support services remained open as they were deemed to be essential services. So students who stayed in halls were supported, and we do in fact still have only a very small number now, but a handful of students who are still in the halls of residence, and their contracts have been extended to support them whilst they're still in the UK, unable to return to their home country. So learning moved online very quickly. Essential support remained in place for all students where they need it. And we're in the position now in the UK where things are starting to open back up again. So a couple of weeks ago, non-essential shops reopened. So things like clothes shops and record shops, those kinds of non-essential stores, they all opened up. And we're at the point now where on the 4th of July, the expectation is that other sectors will open up. So things like cafes and restaurants will all open from the beginning of July. We've also got a huge amount of work going on at the moment on campus to make sure that the campus is COVID safe or COVID secure when we do eventually open back up. Our expectation at the moment is that all students who are due to join us in September will be able to do so, but we've already announced that there will be changes to the shape of delivery of programmes from September. So by way of example, we know now that we're intending that all large lectures will be delivered online throughout semester one. However, if it's possible and safe to do so, small group sessions like tutorials and seminars will happen face to face if it's safe within social distancing guidelines. So our planning at the moment for September will be this blended approach where large lectures will all be delivered remotely online and small group sessions will happen face to face in person if it's possible and safe.
So today we're speaking with our Chinese audience, our Chinese students and potential students. The University of Manchester has obviously many connections to the globe, across the globe, and specifically to China. Could you tell us a little bit more about the university's connections to China?
Yes, so we do have, as an institution, we have a very long history of welcoming students from China onto campus. We currently have somewhere around 6,000 students from China studying with us. That's out of a total international student population of about 11,500 students. So almost half of our international students are from China. And we work, not just the team I work within, but across the university, we work with a very broad range of partners, schools and agencies to encourage and attract talented students from all the provinces of China onto a broad range of degree programmes, full degrees, not just short-term study abroad. Our campus actually is home to the Manchester China Institute, as well as to a Confucius Institute on campus. And we do very much feel that Chinese students and partners contribute enormously to the university's international community, but not just as an institution. So the city of Manchester also has very strong links with China. And so Manchester, for example, has the third largest Chinatown in Europe, and there is a Chinese consulate general based in Manchester as well. And the team that I work with in the International Programmes Office at Manchester have exchanges with several Chinese universities. So we have reciprocal student undergraduate exchanges with Beijing Normal University, East China Normal University, Fudan University, Nanjing University, Tsinghua University, and Zhejiang University as well. So lots of institutional partnerships, as well as lots of links between the city of Manchester and various Chinese cities as well.
Wonderful. I studied at East China Normal University. It's always a small world, all of our interconnections.
Fantastic. Did you enjoy it? Did you like living in China?
Oh, certainly. And actually that almost segues perfectly into what we like to do next, which is usually we wrap up with some quick discussions on food. Specifically, we'd love to hear if you have a favorite Chinese dish.
Well, that's a very interesting question, actually, because Chinese cuisine is one of the most popular types of cuisine in the UK. However, when students from China come over and try it, they say that's nothing like Chinese food. But my favourite English Chinese dish is, and I don't know if I'm going to pronounce this correctly, but it's char siu pork, which is like a barbecued pork. And you can either get it mixed with vegetables or just almost as a dry dish on its own, served with rice. So that's my favourite. But Chinese students look at it in horror and say that's nothing like the dish that we have in China. It's almost like trying a brand new cuisine for them when they come here. They think they're getting exactly what they get at home, but it can be quite.
So following up on this, what is one dish or bite that somebody could get visiting campus? What would you recommend someone as a visiting student to have?
So in the city of Manchester, actually, there are hundreds, if not thousands, of different restaurants with different types of cuisine. So a proliferation of Chinese restaurants, Japanese, Korean restaurants, Middle Eastern restaurants. There is an area of Manchester that's maybe about a mile south of our campus that's known locally as the Curry Mile. And it's not quite a mile in length, but it's a big stretch of mainly Indian, Pakistani, Lebanese restaurants. So plenty of opportunity for students to try those. But if you're looking for something that's on campus, there's a huge range of food outlets on campus. Things like Five Guys, if you want burgers, a food outlet called Pret a Manger, which is casual dining, sandwiches and so on. There's an Indian restaurant on campus, but the one that I'd recommend students try, because it's quite unique in its offerings, is one of our vegetarian and vegan restaurants. And so we have one on the ground floor of our University Place building. It's right in the centre of campus, where every food choice is vegetarian or vegan. And so there's some really interesting recipes in there that you wouldn't necessarily cook for yourself if you weren't vegan or vegetarian, but it's really delicious. So I would encourage students to try that when they're on campus.
So In closing, one other area I wanted to just check in on, we don't often get a chance to speak together as a university and the organization of SAF directly to students. It would be great if you be willing to speak a little bit as to the relationship SAF has with the University of Manchester.
Yes, so we've worked with with the SAF now for about 5 years, I think. And we started off very small. So in the first year, we welcomed single figures of students from Asia through SAF. And that's just grown and grown and grown. And I have to say, we're always very impressed with the level of preparation that students coming through SAF undergo. They seem very well prepared for life in the UK. They seem to be very well supported by SAF. So it's a partnership that we're very keen to continue because we do see that students that come are well equipped to deal with the kind of education system that they'll be experiencing in the UK.
Well, Stephanie, thank you for saying so. We are just about out of time. Is there anything else you'd like to share with the students today?
I think just to say that over the course of the next couple of years, obviously because of the situation that we're in at the moment, the experience that students have on campus may be different than they were expecting when they were planning their study abroad a year or so ago. And I think I just wanted to reassure people that we, on the campus, we're going to be operating, we're not shut, we are welcoming students from all over the UK as well as from overseas. But none of us know exactly how things are going to pan out over the course of the coming months. So I just wanted to reassure students and parents really that we take the situation very seriously and we're doing everything we can to make sure that students are safe when they come here. By way of example, one of the things that we've confirmed over the past couple of weeks is that students who join us in this September, for example, will all be given 2 washable face masks. We've made adjustments to our housing contracts so that if students need to leave early, it's possible for them to do that without significant penalty. So it was just really to reassure people that as the months and the next sort of 12, 18, 24 months come upon us, we are working to make sure that campus is a safe and welcoming place for students.
Thanks so much for coming today and sharing with us.
No problem. Thanks for having me.
Until next time, thanks.
Thanks, William.